everybody, it's Elaine Bryan, Holistic Nutritionist here, and I'm going to teach you how to make a mushroom shawarma. So shawarma just means that it's in the Middle East, Mediterranean. They have meat that they have put on a vertical rotisserie and it turns, seasoned meat. And if you want to make it plant-based, which is what I'm all about, is using portobello mushrooms. So portobellos aren't really wild anymore. They're grown in a medium, and they the baby bellas are the baby size of the portobellos, and they can't even figure out when the portobellos really became popular, but they know about the 1980s or so when health food stores came up and everybody was trying to eat more plant-based and things like that. They realized that the umami, nice little flavor of the big portobellos makes a big difference as far as tasting meaty, and so they came up with all kinds of recipes to do that. You can actually cut out and make them as a pizza crust and things like that. You can stuff them. Lots of different things that we can do with our portobellos. This one's a relatively small one, but you can get really bigger ones. And so what I want to show you how to do is to clean those off. So actually portobello, they can't even, like I said, they can't figure out the name of it. So they figured it was that there was a town where they were selling these portobello mushrooms. It was called Portabello, so maybe that's where the name came from. Also, it kind of means the port type of thing. So, you know, it's just, there's a couple different ideas of where the portobellos really came from, but they're super good. So you don't have to wet them and clean them. You can take a wet paper towel and wipe them down, or I actually have something from Enjo, E-N-J-O, that I get. And it's just, it kind of cleans off the bacteria of things. And so I use that to wipe down a lot of my vegetables. And I just kind of use that, I wet that, and it takes up all the bacteria because the fibers are small and it picks it all up. So I really like that. Some people talk about getting the gills out of the portobello. I like to use my little grapefruit spoon, and I'm just gonna kind of pick those out of there. It kind of makes it a little bit dirtier type of thing. A lot of people really like the taste of them out of there, the gills out of there, but I have cooked them many, many times with the gills in there as well. So whatever is your preference is fine. If you take the gills out of there, it's kind of nice. That's easier to stuff them as well. So you just kind of clean them out a little bit, scrape it all out. Cut the, you know, and then you also want to cut off the stem. Get that out of there. Clean out those gills. Now the little portobellos, the little bellas, you don't really need to do that. They're just so small, it's a lot harder to do that. And then all we want to do for this is we just want to cut them into slices, maybe 1/2-inch slices. If it's a really big portobello, you can cut them in half. Just depends what you want to do. I'm just going to turn up my heat. Because you want to, when you're going to be cooking this recipe, you want your skillet to be really hot. So all I'm going to do is just slice those up. I can use my bigger knife as well. Move this stuff out of the way here. Slice them up. I'm going to put them in a bowl with the other baby bellas that I already cut up, the other mushrooms. I have a lot of mushrooms today. I'm going to go ahead and put those all in there. And this is the baby bella. I'm just going to go ahead and chop that up as well into little slices and put those in there. And then I wanted to take a little bit of onions and make sure that I cut those onions up. Red onions are really great for this recipe, but I have another big sweet white onion, so I'm going to use that as well. I already cut up and sliced. You can see the little slices, rings of the onion, red onions. I'm going to put that in there as well. I kind of break those apart. Bring them apart, put them all in there. And then I cut the bigger onion in half because it was pretty big. And I'm just going to go ahead and slice some of those and put those in there as well. Might as well put that in there too. Get a lot of onions to match how many of the mushrooms we have. We've got quite a bit of mushrooms in there. So a nice butcher knife is really important to kind of do. Make sure you're watching out for your fingers. Let's put all that in there. Kind of break those apart. And we got the other end. That should be about enough. I'm gonna go ahead and put all those in there. Lots of onions. Yeah, maybe I should just use it all up, right? This one I chopped the other way a little bit. Got some ringlets here. Okay, we got our onions. Move everything out of the way so we make room for the now this, move that across there. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and add the next things that we wanna do. We wanna add a bunch of sea salt, not a bunch, but we wanna sprinkle some sea salt over these mushrooms. Okay, so I'm gonna take my sea salt. And drizzle a little bit off the top. So make them sweat just a little bit. You can move that around a little bit. Salt them up just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to drizzle them with about a quarter cup, depending on how many mushrooms you have and onions you have. I have quite a bit, so I'm going to do the half a cup of olive oil that I'm going to drizzle over the top. I can let this sit for a little bit and let them drain a little bit, let them sweat a little bit. But boy, this recipe, when you use a hot skillet, are just going to be great. You don't need to let them sit for very long. So I'm going to go ahead and put the oil over that. We're going to put some lemon on there as well. So it's about 1 juiced lemon. I'm going to sprinkle that on there. I'm going to use my little juicer. This works so much better than just kind of squeezing them, because that way you don't get the seeds in there. You can buy these pretty cheaply. Squeeze all that out. And then we want to mix it around just a little bit. Mix around. Now once we do that, we want to add our shawarma. We're going to let it sit for a minute while I'm talking to you about the shawarma spices. Okay, so these are the spices that make it taste really yummy. You can make it super hot, spicy hot, or not. So it depends on what everybody in your family likes when you're making it, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and show you what some of those spices are. You're going to take 2 teaspoons of cumin. We got our cumin, Trader Joe's again. We got our garlic powder, granulated garlic. The next one we have is paprika. I like to use smoked paprika because it gives it a really great flavor. I got that at Trader Joe's as well. I've got my turmeric, of course turmeric. You got to have some black pepper in there with that. So I put some black pepper in there with the spices. A little bit of cloves. It's just a little bit, like a half a teaspoon of the cloves to put in there. And if you want to spice it up a little bit, you put the cayenne pepper in there. Okay, so all of that is mixed in here with my spices. I already mixed them together, and I can just move them around with a spoon, and that way we can make sure they're all mixed together really well. Okay, so like over the recipe, it says leave the mushrooms in the pan to sizzle when we put those in there. But right now, we wanted to mix the shawarma spices together, which we did. We're heating up the onions, and then we're going to go ahead and put this in there. Get our nice and hot skillet. I can add a little bit. I usually, like I said, high temperature. Sometimes I like to use the avocado oil to just put in there, sprinkle that in there a little bit. I have another mushroom I'm going to put in there as well, so I'm going to clean that off. Get that in there. I'll do that in just a minute. So while that's heating up, we're just going to clean another mushroom, get all the gills out of there real quick. We have 2 of the big portobellos. I want to make sure we get all that in there. We're just going to clean that off. Again, we're just cleaning off the gills with a little bit of a serrated little, I use the grapefruit spoon because it's so easy. You can just use a regular spoon. It totally works. Just trying to get some of those out of there. And that way it tastes super yummy. And I can clean it again with that little cloth or a wet paper towel. And then I can just slice that up. Perfect. Okay, we got those all in there. So once we put this in there, we just want these to sit for at least 2 minutes or so, and just at a really high temperature. Wanted to make sure we got it nice and hot, which we do. I'm gonna turn it up even more. Make sure it's nice and hot. We got our, so what we do is when we cook those in here for about 2 minutes and let them sit all for a little bit, then we're gonna season them with the shawarma spice blend. You can use half of what you made or all of it. Just kind of go a little bit at a time and see if it looks pretty good to you. And then you want to make sure that the onions and mushrooms are really well cooked, about 7 minutes or so. So let's just kind of put those in there and make sure it's hot enough. And we're just going to load them on in there. Sizzling. Remember, they cook down a lot. It looks like a lot at first, but it does cook down. And if you want to use a bigger skillet, because this is a pretty big skillet, but I have a lot of mushrooms and a lot of onions to put in there. I wanted to use up everything that I have. And use a big griddle. I'm just going to let them set for a few minutes, and then I'll come back. Okay, so these have cooked down a little bit. We move them around a little bit after we let them sizzle for a while. Again, this is in a round pan. You can also have a bigger, longer skillet if you want to cook them in. Just want to make sure the pan is nice and hot to really get them nice and warm. Cook faster and higher. And then this is where we're going to sprinkle on the shawarma little spices. So we can just kind of sprinkle those on. I only use half of it first to make sure that's about how much I want. But you can use it all up as well. I have a lot, so I think I'll just use it all up. Made a lot today. I'm just going to move that around. I can smell that smoked paprika. See, the turmeric is changing the color of the vegetables. Mushrooms are very high in selenium, which is really good for your immune system, really good for your thyroid, and it's also really good for a source of possibly vitamin D. That's what mushrooms are really have when they're grown in the sun. They have a lot of vitamin D in them, which is really good for your immune system as well. So I'm going to let those cook down a little bit longer, and then I'll show you the finished product in just a little bit here. Okay, now the shawarma is ready. You can see it's sizzling. You want to char it a little bit. Depends on how much water is in there. You can drain some of the liquid out of there if you want to. Kind of char it up a little bit. But I have my gluten-free pita, which is my flatbread. I have a little bit of microgreens, and I have some tomatoes. And I'm just going to take some of this beautiful shawarma, flavorful shawarma, put it on top of that. We want to make sure that I can fold it over if I want to and just eat it up that way. And I'm going to take some of my lemony tahini and drizzle that over the top. Nice little sauce to go on top of it. Nice tahini. You can put hummus on the top too. You can put a little bit of your tomatoes on the top if you want to, and microgreens. And you're ready to eat. Enjoy!